I rise today to speak about our nation's broken criminal justice system, a system that has taken an unimaginable and, I believe, unsustainable toll on our nation. The United States, remarkably, is home to between 4 and 5% of the entire globe's population. But we have 25% of the world's prison population. This phenomenon is unacceptable, that the land of the free would have 25% of the globe's imprisoned people. And what's startling about that is that the majority of those people are non-violent offenders. In fact, the majority are non-violent drug offenders. Now, this phenomenon has largely emerged since around 1980, a period during which the federal prison population has grown nearly tenfold. Since 1980, we've seen a 10 times increase in our prison population. And again, if we were locking up violent offenders, people that are terrorizing our streets or inflicting vicious and violent harm on our communities, then ridding our streets of such dangerous criminals would be understandable, and it would be a price worth paying. But that is not the story of this unbelievable explosion of our federal prisons and our nation's incarcerated people. The reality is, again, that nearly 3/4 of federal prisoners are non-violent and have no history of violence whatsoever. What's worse, and what is anguished, is that once you are convicted of a crime, American citizens then face daunting obstacles to successfully rejoining society, to being able to raise their family, put food on the table, provide for themselves. Our state and federal prison exits, as a result of that, have now become revolving doors, with 2 of every 3 ex-offenders getting rearrested within 5 years. 2/3 of those nonviolent folks leaving our prisons come back in within 5 years. When ex-offenders return to prison again and again and again, they are not just paying a price, we all are paying the price. We are contributing so much of our national treasure, to rearresting the same people over and over again, to reincarcerating the same people over and over again. A recent Pew report concluded that if just 10 states, just 10, that they studied, cut their recidivism just 10%, it would save taxpayers $470 million, money that this nation urgently could use either to keep in the pockets of taxpayers or invest in things like lowering the cost of college or investing in our roads and bridges and our crumbling infrastructure. As hard-working, tax-paying Americans have increased the fund for our prisons, funding more and more and more, there have been fewer and fewer resources left for these other crucial parts of our society. Less resources for law enforcement, less resources for rehabilitative programs, less resources for proven investments in children that help prevent crime in the first place. The result has been a cycle of spending and incarceration that has led to the ballooning of this federal prison bureaucracy, more than $250 billion a year from our economy going to unproductive and even counterproductive uses. Our country's misguided criminal justice policies place an economic drag on local communities and on our nation's global competitiveness. Remember, if we're putting 25% of the globe's population, prison population, in our American prisons, paying the price for that, our competitive democracies, our competitive economies aren't paying that price. And we're doing this, paying this egregious price, and it's not making us any more safe. In fact, I would say it's making us less safe as a community. Now, many of my colleagues in this body, I am proud to say, recognize the need, the urgent need for reform, and have already put forth pieces of legislation that seek to improve various parts of this broken system. I'm grateful to applaud the bipartisan efforts that exist in this body amongst my colleagues, Senators Leahy and Flake, Durbin and Lee, Whitehouse, Landrieu, Franken, and others standing up to say, you know what, we've got to save taxpayer dollars, we've got to elevate human potential, and we've got to make our streets safer. And so to build off the momentum of these leaders in the Senate, I've joined with Senator Rand Paul to introduce today the Record Expungement Designed to Enhance Employment or REDEEM Act. This bipartisan legislation will establish much-needed, sensible, pragmatic reforms that keep kids out of an adult system in the first place, protect their privacy so that a youthful mistake can remain a youthful mistake and not haunt young people throughout their lives, and help make it actually less likely that low-level, nonviolent offenders do not reoffend. Among other measures, our bill incentivizes states to raise the age of original jurisdiction for criminal courts to 18 years old. Trying juveniles who have committed low-level crimes, low-level nonviolent crimes as adults is counterproductive. They don't emerge from prison reformed and ready to reintegrate into high school. The criminal record they have won't help them as they try to get a job. We need a system that treats juveniles toughly but fairly, with an eye towards a productive adulthood, with an eye towards restorative justice. For kids in the dozen states that treat 17 and even 16-year-olds as adults, no longer would it be likely that getting into a scuffle at school would result in an adult record that could follow an individual for the rest of their lives. Restricting access to a college degree, limiting employment prospects, and increasing the likelihood of engaging in further criminal activity. It's time that we empower our children to succeed, not undermine their long-term prospects for life success. The REDEEM Act also enhances federal juvenile record confidentiality provisions and provides for the automatic expungement of records for kids who commit nonviolent crimes before they turn 15, an automatic sealing of records for those who commit nonviolent crimes after they turn 15. It will also ban the very cruel and counterproductive practice of juvenile solitary confinement that can have an immediate and long-term detrimental effect on youth detainees' mental and physical health. In fact, the majority of suicides by juveniles in prisons happened by young people who are in solitary confinement. Other nations even consider it torture. For adults, this legislation offers the first broad-based federal path to the sealing of criminal records. A person who commits a non-violent crime will be able to petition a court and make his or her case. Furthermore, employers requesting a background check from the Federal Bureau of Investigation will be provided with only relevant and accurate information, thanks to a provision that will protect job applicants by improving the quality of the Bureau's background check. Think about this: 17 million background checks were done by the FBI last year, many of them for private providers, and upwards of half of them were inaccurate or incomplete, often causing people to lose a job, miss an economic opportunity, and be again trapped with few options. To address the basic economic insecurity that can lead someone to reoffend in order to feed a child, the REDEEM Act lifts the ban on receiving Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, or SNAP. These benefits were conceived in a way that should empower people when they have a time of need, and those convicted of drug use or possession who've paid their dues have now a path to the reinstatement of those benefits so that they can get their lives together so that they can be empowered and successful. Taken together, these measures will help keep kids who get in trouble out of a lifetime of crime and help adults who commit nonviolent crimes become more self-reliant and less likely to reoffend. The time to act is now. We cannot afford to let our criminal justice system to continue to grow at the rate that it is. We cannot afford to sap billions of taxpayer dollars into a broken system that is locking people up and then doing nothing to empower them to succeed. We are wasting human potential, human productivity. We're hurting our economy. And by trapping people without options, we often end up making our communities less safe. We've seen how other states, individual states, are doing things to address this issue and are actually lowering recidivism and lowering their prison population, and on top of it, lowering actual crime in their states. It's time that the federal government act to do the same. I urge my colleagues to support the REDEEM Act so that we can make our communities safer and stronger and truly be a nation that savors and values freedom and empowers its citizens to live productive, strong lives of contribution. Thank you, Mr. President.